What is going on, everybody? In this video I'm going to teach beginners how to build mages in Smite. But real quick, do me a favor and help me get to 100 subscribers by headbutting that subscribe button down below. Now let's get to the video. So we're gonna build have a little generic build for mages that would be pretty decent in any game mode. Of course, if you're an experienced player, you're gonna build according to the situation that you're in and who you're facing and how they're building and all that. But for beginners, it's hard. You know, they're just learning. They don't know what each character do or all the items and stuff like that. So I want to make a little generic build for them to help them out, just until they become more experienced with the game, and then you start branching out and building your character the way you feel is best for the situation that you're in. So I'm going on Agni, but it doesn't really matter what mage. Just picking him since he was on the top of the list. Alright, so you'll want to start out with a starter item, and there's really only 3 starter items that I recommend would be good for mages. So you can go with Conduit Gem. It's going to give you some magical power, mana, and MP5. Now, for starter items, you can't upgrade them until you're at level 20. And at level 20, the Conduit Gem is going to give you a pretty decent bit of power. So that's one that you can go with. Another one would be Vampiric Shroud. So it's going to... This one you would build it just in case if you want that little bit of sustain in the early game. So it's going to restore 4 health and 6 mana every time you use an ability. And then of course, it gives you the stats that you see right there, the magical power, a little bit of physical protection, and health and magical lifesteal. So this one's good for that little early sustain. So that's another item that you can start out with. But the one that I recommend would be Sands of Time. Just because it gives you a little bit of power, it gives you MP5 and that 10% cooldown, so that way you can use your abilities a lot sooner. And then it also grants you 2 MP5 per 10% of missing mana, so it helps you keep your mana. It helps you keep your mana up. That way you can stay in lane longer without having to go back because you're out of mana and you can't use your abilities. So this is the one that I can recommend that you start out with. And then for your first item, you'll always start out with Bancroft's Talon. You'll see even the experienced players, they always start out with Bancroft's Talon. That's the go-to first item to go with for any mage, just because it gives you a lot of power. It gives you that magical lifesteal, so you can have your sustain. It gives you 150 mana, and then you gain additional magical power and lifesteal scaled from missing health. This caps at 100 power and 20% lifesteal at 25% health. So basically, the lower in health you get, the stronger you get. That's basically how it works. You'll get more power, more lifesteal, so it'll help you regen that health back. It'll help you do more damage to win, tough fights, close fights. So this is the go-to first item to always get. Now from here it'll change from experienced players, because from here now they're starting to see what other people are building. They'll look at who they're facing, so then they'll start building different. But for beginners, I always recommend for you to get Divine Ruin. So Divine Ruin is going to give you a good bit of power. It gives you some penetration, but it also makes it to where your abilities cause a 40% reduction in healing for 6 seconds on the enemy gods that you hit. So the reason I recommend beginners to just build this next would be because you still don't know who you're facing, so you don't know who's a healer, who has sustain, who's building lifesteal. So better to be safe than sorry, and I'd recommend to get that anti-heal online next. That way you don't run into a situation where they're just healing for too much and you can't do nothing about it. So this is a really good item to have for your second item. Now for your next item, I say second item because I didn't count the starter item, so I guess it's third item. So for the next item that I recommend you guys get, there's a lot of good choices out here, but what I would recommend would be to get here it is. So I would recommend you get Chronos Pendant. So Chronos Pendant is going to give you 100 power, 20 MP5, so it's going to help you keep your mana up, and you know, by this time you're about mid game, so your abilities, the more you upgrade them, the more mana they cost, so you're going to need that MP5. It also gives you the 20% cooldown reduction, so you can use your abilities even faster. So you got 20% from Chronos Pendant, and you got 10% for the starter item. You can only get 40% cooldown reduction in this game. That's the max cooldown reduction that you'll be able to get. So if you pick up a jungle buff, that'll put you at 40%. Also, the passive on this is that every 10 seconds it'll subtract 1 second from all your abilities that are on cooldown. So you'll get your abilities a lot quicker. It's really good. It's a really good item to have. Now for your fourth item, so I'm gonna recommend you get a Soul Reaver. Reason being is, you know, of course it gives you the 95 power, the 300 mana, but also this item makes it to where you do more damage the more health an enemy has. And again, you know, you're still learning the game. You don't know what characters have high health or what characters are building high health, you know, because there's characters like Xingqiang. Xingqiang typically always goes high health, you know, and you don't want to just be attacking this person, this tank, and his health is just not going down. I'm not doing barely any damage to him, you know. You don't want to run into that situation, so you might as well just get Soul Reaver, do that extra damage, and yeah, just until you learn the game, you'll end up building the characters different depending on the situation you're in. But Soul Reaver is a really good item to have. And then lastly, I recommend you getting an item that gives you penetration. Right now, in my opinion, there's not really too many good penetration items, aside from like Demonic Grip, but this is for basic attack base gods, so you would not get this. Other than that, there's like really nothing that great. Let's go here, because you got Chiron's Coin. It gives you 20% penetration, but you don't really get much power or anything out of it. You got Obsidian Shard, which would be the best choice in my opinion, and this would be the one I would go. It gives you 20% penetration. You get an additional 10% magical penetration on your first ability that you cast, and it only occurs every 10 seconds. It gives you 80 power, which is you know, but all the other penetration items aren't that great. This only gives you 10%. Ratatouille 10%. This only gives you 10. It's not even, it's just flat 10, not percentage pen. So yeah, I would recommend Obsidian Shard. To me is the best penetration item right now. And this is basically what I recommend for beginners to build, since you guys are still learning the game and don't know exactly what every god does or how they're building or anything like that. Experienced players will always build different depending on who they're facing, the game mode that you play, but this build would work pretty well in any game mode. So this would be what I recommend you get. I will mention some honorable mentions on items. So Book of Thoth is extremely good. It gives you a whole lot of power. You'll see that it says 80, but the way this item works is, so it builds stacks. And the way to build stacks is by killing minions, you get 1 stack, or killing an enemy god, you get 5 stacks. And this item maxes out at 75 stacks. You'll end up getting you get 10 mana per stack on top of the 250 mana that you already have. So it'll give you 750 extra mana by the time it evolves, and it'll convert 7% of your mana into magical power. And then once it evolves, it'll give you an extra 3% of power, of mana converted to power. So that's a whole heck of a lot of power. This item is extremely good. But the reason I don't put it in my build for beginners is because it's typically hard for beginners to build stacks. I noticed that a lot of beginners, when they do go items that build stacks, it takes them forever. And they'll end up falling behind on levels and eventually just never getting this item online because it's too hard for them to build stacks. So that's why I don't put it in my build, but I do put it in my honorable mention just because it's a really, really good item. So we'll put that one there. Another item that I put on honorable mention will be Book of the Dead, just because the Book of the Dead is really strong right now. It gives you a good bit of power, mana, and cooldown reduction. But the big deal with this item is the passive. So when you drop to 40% health, you gain a shield equal to 30% of your maximum mana. So if you're in a close fight, this item is game changer. Because you'll just get a big huge shield out of nowhere, and now look who's all of a sudden gonna win this fight. You would win this fight. You have a better chance of winning this fight because now you have a huge shield in that fight that was close, and now it's no longer close because of that shield. So I do put that one there. And another item that we'll put in the honorable mention would be Gem of ISO. Gem of ISO is really good. It gives you some magic power, some health, and cooldown reduction, but it also makes your abilities, your damaging abilities, cause the enemy to move 20% slower. So it's better. It makes it easier for you to stick on the enemy, makes it easier for you to land abilities on the enemy. Again, since you're a beginner, it might be hard for you to land some abilities. It might not, but if it's hard for you to land certain abilities, this will make it a lot easier for you to land all your abilities. You land your first one, you slow the enemy down, and then now it's a lot easier for you to land all your other abilities. So that's in my honorable mention. And then we'll choose one more for an honorable mention. And like, you have a lot of good items in here, but I'm gonna choose one of my favorites, and that's gonna be Polynomicon. So Polynomicon gives you 95 power, and it gives you 300 mana and 12% lifesteal. Now, why it's my favorite item is because of the passive. So anytime that you land an ability, your next basic attack is going to deal 75% of your power as additional magical damage. So it basically beefs up your basic attack. And I really like this item just because of that. But the reason it's in my honorable mention is because it doesn't work that well on a lot of gods. I recommend you use it on gods where you can quickly sneak in a basic attack after an ability. So gods that don't have that, where their basic attacks is really slow. For example, let's say Chang'e. Chang'e can do an ability attack, and then by the time you swing your you throw your basic attack, it's kind of like it's too slow. I recommend it for, let's put it in here. All right, so those are my honorable mentions. Let's save this build. We'll come back to that. So I recommend it on, of course, like gods like so Cuckoo would be the perfect example. So I call him Cuckoo. Con. It works really good with him because of his one. So after he shoots his one, he quickly can shoot a basic attack right after it. So it makes it do that, gives it that one shot potential type of thing, where you can kill an enemy with one shot just about, because of that basic attack just comes out so quick. So it really can't be built on a lot of gods. It can work on Aquan, it can work on him as well, you know, but it doesn't work on every god. It won't work on Afro. Like, I mean, it'll work, but it's like, it's not essential. Let's go back to Agni. So this is what I would build. What you see there on the bottom left: the Sands of Time, Bancroft's Divine Ruin, Chronos Pendant, Soul Reaver, and Obsidian Shard. These bottom four right here, they're honorable mentions. If you feel comfortable building stacks, definitely get Book of Thoth. You would get Book of Thoth after Bancroft's Talon. And then these start items, you can use these start items. The Conduit Gem gives you a lot of power. This one gives you sustain, and then you have your this will give you like health sustain, and this gives you mana sustain and cooldown. So depending on whatever your preference is. But yeah, this is a little generic build for beginners that would work in just about any game mode. This is what I recommend until you start learning the game more. Now, for abilities, what I recommend is that you max out your most damaging ability. In this case, it would be so it would be Agni's 1, and that's what I would work on maxing out. So we'll give a little example. We'll build Agni the way I would build them. So you'll get his 1. I'm gonna give a little generic build. I know for experienced players you would go the dash at level 1, but for beginners, let's just help them out. Let's give a build that would work for any game mode anyways. So let me explain why. Now I probably confused beginners. Alright, so the reason people get the dash is because it'll tick for 2 seconds for 0.5 seconds. So that 20 damage that it does there, when you see damage per tick, it does 20 damage at level 1. So that will tick 4 times because it's 0.5 for 2 seconds. So it'll do 80 damage. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't know why people get their dash. 4, that's 80. This is still 90. Alright, well, scratch what I just said, guys. Let's get the 1 first. The 2 first, and then the 1. And then at level 3, you'll get the dash. And then we'll get the 2 again. Boom. Now you're at level 5. At level 5, you can get the Rain of Fire, your ultimate. So that's what I would get. And then you'll go back to your most damaging ability. Whenever you're level 6, you put a point on it. Level 7, put a point on it, and it doesn't let you put no more points on it. So don't bother trying, because it's not going to let you. Next, you'll put it again on your next damaging ability. I put it on my 1 because this is your dash. Basically, you're going to want to use it as an escape. I wouldn't use your escape to go in unless you're fully confident that you can win that fight. So boom, your next damaging ability, and then now you're going to upgrade your ultimate. You always want to get your ultimate whenever it lets you get your ultimate. Boom. And then you can't upgrade it no more, so then you'll go back to your most damaging ability. Now it's maxed out at level 10, so that's perfect. Then you go to your next damaging ability, the 1, and then the 1 again, because you can't get your ultimate yet. Now it lets you get your ultimate. Remember, you always want to get your ultimate when it lets you. Back to your second damaging ability. It's already maxed out, so then you want to go to your last ability that's not maxed out, and your ultimate's still not there, so you want to get your dash again, and now you can get your ultimate. And then to finish it off, you would get your last ability, max it out, and then your ultimate. So in short, you just want to get max out your most damaging ability while getting your ultimate whenever you can, then max out your next damaging ability while getting your ultimate whenever you can, and then your last ability, you'll max it out while getting your ultimate whenever you can. That's the best way that I can explain it for beginners. Of course, once you're experienced, you'll upgrade your stuff depending on situation, game mode, and etc. But that's how I recommend you do it for any of the gods. And yeah, you can have this on auto buy until you get more used to the game. And then for item builder, I recommend you not to have this on auto buy. I actually recommend you don't have any of them on auto buy, but for your skills you can have it on auto buy until you get more used to the game. But for the item builder, I recommend you don't have it on auto buy. That way you can get used to whenever you go to the fountain buying the things for yourself. I mean, if you want to have it on auto buy, that's fine. You know, it'll buy it in that order that you check mark them, and the order that you see on the bottom left. But I highly recommend you do not have it on auto buy. You buy it yourself. That way you can get used to opening the shop and selecting the items. That way, whenever you become more experienced and you learn the items, you're already used to buying the stuff yourself. So then you can go search for the actual items that you actually want, you know, when you're more experienced. And, you know, you'll be used to that. That is my little tip for you guys. But I'm going to leave the video right here. This is just a little guide to help the beginners out. If you guys want me to build a specific mage, leave it down in the comment below and I'll do a more in-depth build for that mage. You know, because certain mages have specific builds that would work best for them. For example, let's say like Soul. Soul is a god that she can be build basic attack base, so you wouldn't build any of these items. You would go with like with items that'll help buff up her basic attacks, you know. So things like that I can go more in depth with any of these gods. You know, just let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to make a video out of that. But that'll be it for this video. I'm going to try to do a beginner's build for each of the classes, assassins, guardians, hunters, and warriors. But until then, I shall see you guys next time. Peace.